QI, where we have prepared for you a veritable Gallimaufrey of gaffs, gammons and other gingham bobs. On the panel tonight, we have the gotch-gutted Hugh Dennis. A grin-flashy Grinagog's Phil Jupitus. A gravy-eyed Gundy-Guts Andy Hamilton. And a proper Gilly-Gorpus Alan Davis. And to attract my attention tonight, the buzzers are all on a Georgian theme. Hugh goes... Oh, Andy goes... Phil goes... Wow. And Alan goes...
When I'm feeling winded.
It's George Formby, I believe. Excellent. Well, you might have been able to tell when I introduced it, I've been spending a weekend with my 18th century book of Georgian slang, and I called you gravy-eyed. What do you think that means?
Eyes like gravy?
Well, roomy, runny eyes. Glim-flashy. It means an angry person, glim-flashy. I think their eyes are flashing, their glims of their eyes, I think. There is a great phrase called whittle my scrap. Do you know what that means?
Does that mean you can exchange your car for £2,000?
Very good. No, to whittle somebody's scrap means to see their game, to see what they're up to. He whittled my scrap. And so, I have decided to institute a game of whittle my scrap. It's an early version of Call My Bluff. So let's play Whittle My Scrap. Let's have a word. And let's have your team.
You've got to do it as Robert Robinson or playing.
It's a gentleman of 3 outs. What can it mean? What can it mean? Andy has the answer.
A gentleman of 3 outs was a genteel Georgian expression, and it meant someone without money, without wit, and without manners.
Oh, right,
so they
three
were the
withouts.
three withouts, but it was someone without money, without wit, and without manners, and it was...
So it's like a sort of Piers Morgan of the 18th century.
Well, before he got rich.
Yes,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, a gentleman of 3 outs is a status thing. The 18th century was a period in which many of the great homes were built, but lesser people couldn't afford to build massive houses, so they built smaller houses, but they put lots of outhouses on them. So if you were a gentleman of 3 outs, it would mean that you had 3 outbuildings, and that would be a mark of your status and your means.
Or it was Punch magazine's genteel description of the notorious highwayman Johnny Triple Arse.
Right.
Now, one of those is maybe more plausible than the others, I don't know.
Right, so our team, who's your captain? Who's going to guess? It's a...
I never used to really like Call My Bluff. It was quite boring because of this bit.
Yes,
I always used to like the bit where someone would go, I'm leaning towards you.
And then they look at you and try and see if you crack.
Robert say we just can't tell. They say, have a plump, have a plump. Plump for something.
The first one.
The first one, the gentleman without manners. Reveal yourself, is it true?
In that very
It's a bit of a
teasy
cheat
way.
to go with the first one, because you couldn't actually remember what it was.
No, at all. Yeah.
What he said.
I wasn't really listening. I can't stand Call My Bluff.
This is
Why are
Whittle
we playing Call My
This
Bluff?
is
It's a
Whittle.
shit game. We've invented a really good game and we're playing a shit.
It's a way of allowing our
Call My
brilliance
Bluff,
to
they're busy
stand up.
playing QI and they're having a rock.
Shall I do it the way sort of
Yeah,
Diana
go
Rigg
on.
would do it?
Ooh. You're right!
Yes.
Oh, brilliant. Can only be points. Now, let's have the next word. And it's grog blossom. It's a phrase. Grog blossom. Would you like to explain what grog blossom means?
It's actually the kind of mould that you get around the inside of a barrel of beer that you have to clean out before you can use it again.
Right.
I'd like to, if I may, do it in the style of the usual customary out-of-work actor they used to have on Call My Bluff, who would then really lean into his definition in an effort to beg for work. Imagine, if you will, a lone figure walking across Hampstead Heath, the sun glinting in his very eyes, for he is making his way back from an evening at the inn, where he has partaken of mead and other lascivious beverages. Adorning the chin of said stout fellow are pimples, for they betray his excesses, and these, at the time, were known as Marty Fitch, 01287 available for Panto. Grog Blossom.
Oh, bravo. Excellent. So it's some kind of spot caused by drunkenness, or it's the mould growing on the inside of a barrel of ale. Would you like to confer?
Yeah. I do think it's the stuff around the barrel.
Do you?
Yeah.
The dull one.
Yeah.
We're going for the dull answer,
Dull
please,
answer,
Robert.
Alan, true or bluff?
It's a bluff!
Oh, no. So the true answer...
So then I have to do like they... And of course,
Yeah.
the man walking across the column, it was he!
Yeah, it is. That's enough gratuitous Georgian grossness. Let's look at a notable gaffe now. How did Captain Schlitz, number 2, sink his own U-boat?
I'm assuming that the good captain was in the bath. This couldn't have happened in an actual...
No, it was a real...
What, you mean playing with a toy U-boat?
And
It was
with a
a
number
real
2.
U-boat. Oh, I see. I read number 2 in that sense, is what you think.
Yes.
Not as in yes, number 1, carry
He
on,
might
number
have
1.
blocked the loo and caused some sort of terrible backup. Affected the ballast.
Imagine how the lavatory on a submarine works.
Sorry about it, a bit of a clue. Yeah, ruthless competitor. It's something to do with the flush on the
Yes.
toilet.
How does that work, do you imagine, when you're underwater?
It's sucked it out, but it let water in, presumably, did it?
Well, the point is that obviously the lavatorial arrangements of a boat that's submersible are very complex, because you can't just flush the water out in the way you can from an aeroplane or a train. And you had to have special training to operate the flush.
Or you shoot a sailor out of the torpedo tube, tied to a rope, he relieves himself and you pull him back in.
Well, it seems that what happened was Captain Schlitt, in his U-boat U-1206, this is April the 14th, 1945, so just before the end of the war.
Oh, how annoying.
Very annoying for him. And he has a poo. And he claims that the loo was faulty and didn't work properly. The
he
Klo,
would say that,
Klo,
wouldn't
as they
he?
would say, the Klo was gebrochen. It was not working. But there is a theory that, in fact, he'd just done a rather monster and unpleasant poo and was too embarrassed to ask the sailor who was responsible for the doing of the flushing to come in, because there was a bit of a...
Yeah.
And so he did it himself and got it in the wrong order, and he filled the place with sewage and water. But more importantly...
And just left it.
Yeah, how did...
As you would if you were in a hotel.
Yeah, come on, Sam, that wasn't... that was like that when I went in.
Yeah.
It was...
Don't go in that one, my God.
So as he climbed out of the tower of the submarine and the
No, they're underwater, that's the point.
This all happened... Did they sink?
Underwater,
Did they
that's...
perish?
Well, what happened, you see, is there was a leak of this water. The water came in, and it leaked into... What powered those U-boats?
Diesel?
Well, they had a battery.
Electricity, yeah.
A battery, a huge acid battery. And when the seawater hits the battery, it creates chlorine gas, toxic chlorine gas. And so they had to rise up to the surface to vent, and they were spotted and blown out of the water. So just because he
It's
basically...
very unfair to shoot a man with his trousers round down.
It is a bit. But it is the only known
This
case.
doesn't count.
Captain Komarov Schlitz sank his own U-boat using nothing more deadly than its own lavatory. Now, getting up. What gets you up in the morning? Bizarre picture to choose, but...
I'm a writer. I mean, getting up in the morning isn't really part of my job.
I used to leave the World Service on overnight but just very quiet on the radio at the side, and so I thought I'd wake up sort of quite naturally. But I was listening to Radio 4 on the way to work the next day, and I heard the news on the radio, and I thought, I dreamed this. For 2 days, I thought I was psychic. Because I'd been dreaming what I was listening to on the world surface. I thought, oh, my God, I've got the powers.
Are there ones you know of? Did you ever use as a child if you didn't have an alarm clock?
This was the old wivesy one. Bang your head on the pillow the number of times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And you would wake up
at 6.
Yeah.
With concussion.
Have you not heard that?
I've not tried that.
You maybe have to have been at a boarding school. But we used to do, like, if you were doing a raid on the kitchens or something, we'd say, OK, we'll get up at 3 and we'll go down to the kitchens because they have these big blocks of catering jelly and you'd eat the blocks of jelly.
Left out specially for the ones who are going to raid the kitchen.
Yeah, probably.
The kids have been raiding the kitchen again, better leave some jelly out.
But we would go bang, 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 like that, 3, and you'd wake up at 3. And it seemed to work. We were convinced it did work. Sleep researchers say that it doesn't. You just wake up a lot because you're not sleeping, and you look at your watch, and then you only remember the one that works.
You've got a tremendous headache.
The later you want to sleep. You say you don't get up early, but are you a night owl? Do you work later?
No, I can get up early if I have to.
Yeah. So it's reckoned that 20% of people are genuinely, it is a difficulty for them because they are larks or owls, as you might say. They are early or late, and that's to say they fall asleep at dinner parties if they're a lark, and they just can't get up if they're an owl.
Teenagers are owls, aren't they?
Young children are larks, and teenagers are owls, and then very old people tend to get back to being larks again and rise very early.
But it's very irritating. If people do get up very early, they will justify that by saying, best part of the day, best part of the day. You think it's not, it's just part of the day. I see
When
another bit of the day.
There are things that happen early in the morning that are different if you've stayed up for them than if you've woken up to them. Like it's 3 or 4 in the morning and you're having an all-nighter and you hear the bim and you feel guilty and you hate the fact the morning's come. If you wake up to it, you think, yes, it belongs to me. It's a big difference, isn't it?
I used to live in a house in Herne Hill and I had the room at the front, and there was one bin man who thought he could sing, and at 6 in the morning he would come and he would sing Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. But he could never get the last note. So you go, don't cry for me, Argentina. No! Well, it used to vary morning to morning. And I was that close to insanity, because he was, he was my lark, every
Rex
morning.
Harrison did your bins.
Yeah, 2 sisters called Argentina, didn't you know?
You know what the American Indians supposedly did to make sure they got up early for a dawn raid? Because they didn't have alarm clocks.
Leave the curtains open?
No.
Isn't it all
Dogs?
curtains?
They would drink lots of water.
So they needed a wee.
So they would have to get up for a wee. MIT produced a clock which, when you press the snooze button, it runs off and hides. So then when it rings again, you have to get up to stop it. And it's programmed each day to hide in a different place, to find a different... It's never in the same... That's quite
They
clever.
are working on really important projects.
And there's another one which is an alarm clock in the shape of a dumbbell, and you can't shut it up unless you do 30 reps on the thing. So it's a way of getting fit and waking up at the same time.
What a deeply demoralising... That clock thing is a deeply demoralising start to the day. You've been outwitted by a clock. That's the first thing that's happened in your day. The clock's giving you the runaround for half an hour.
There's another one which every time you press the snooze button, right, it's got an online connection, you donate money to a political cause you hate. That's quite clever, isn't it?
Good. We've got a clock, it's like a cuckoo clock, but it's a monkey. And he comes out and goes, on the hour. But only ever when I'm saying something important. Unbelievable. Every time I'll be saying, now look, no, the thing is, what you got to understand? And one day it's going to end up like the cuckoo clock in Steptoe and Son.
It's like waiters in restaurants who do that only just as you reach the punchline of a joke, and so she said, who's having the lamb? Well, there you go. You see, there are, of course, many cunning ways of waking yourself up without an alarm clock. American Indians swore by a nice full bladder. Now, here are samples of handwriting from our panellists. I want you to match the handwriting to the panelista and see what you can say about it. Give your reasons if you can. Obviously, don't say your own, because you'll know your own.
Hello, my name is Phil Jupiter.
I wonder who that could be.
I think there's a clue in
It's
that
rather
one.
good handwriting, whoever that is. That's quite sort of calligraphically learnt, isn't it? Dear points of view, I wish to complain about QI.
What, can I ask why I'm wearing a beret?
Yeah. My fault, that's the eyebrow I can't control. People always think that I'm being quizzical when they say something, and I can't. It's just
It's up there.
Is it on its way up or on its way down?
I've no idea.
So, any thoughts? What about... I must not answer back to Mr.
D is Phil.
D is Phil, you think? Yeah, I think there's a strong
it?
chance it's Phil.
I know that D is Andy because he writes on my scripts rude things when we're filming.
Does he really have that fine handwriting?
I think he has that
is
handwriting.
very fine.
Yes, that is me.
Congratulations on fine handwriting. A graphologist would say of yours that it's because it's mostly joined up, logical, systematic thinker. Some words are more spaced than others, therefore open, honest, but deep in thought. Sociable because of the slightly forward slant to the right.
Oh, right.
So, OK, that's good. We've got your... We can eliminate D as being Andy Hamilton.
I think C is Alan.
Because it's the untidiest?
No, I just think it's Alan. Don't know why.
Is it you, Alan?
Yeah.
It is. Oh, that's really good.
How did you know? Because you watched me doing it earlier.
No, I just thought that looks like Alan wrote it. Which is the only way you can play this game.
Close lettering is unstable, apparently. Oh.
There wasn't much room on the bit of paper.
No.
I was doing.
Oh, I'll forgive
I had
you.
to squeeze it in to get it in.
Letters not mostly joined up sometimes does things without thinking.
There's a big fat pen. You
Yeah, I
can't
know.
You gave me a marker pen.
So we're left with B and A. So
I think
B...
Phil and I can probably work
You
out.
think it's a kind of logical thing there. So B is Phil, yeah?
No.
B is Hugh. It's quite good handwriting. It's quite flowing, quite feminine almost, isn't it?
Well, you know,
And your
very
handwriting
in
had a
touch
gender
with that part of
reassignment.
my nature.
It's very nice. It's very nice
Does
handwriting.
it say anything about me?
Yeah. Joins up most but not all letters, artistic and intuitive. Self-control, egotism and coldness, on the other hand, because it's upright.
Why is being upright mean that?
It doesn't. It must be understood at this point that the British Psychological Society and any empirical test ever done has shown that graphology as a way of interpreting character has zero validity, like astrology.
So this is a bit of a kind of non-round.
Yeah,
really.
but no, it's interesting to know that. And even in America, it's not allowable in court. Forensic... Sorry, I mean, you know, but... Forensic graphology, where you prove that this person did write this, that is allowable. But the idea that you can interpret character in it is just absolute
I must say, I'm
nonsense.
now not looking forward to the DNA round.
But the worrying thing about it is that 3,000 British businesses use graphologists for recruitment. They actually hire people on the basis of a completely specious...
Good a way as any, though, isn't
Are
it?
they...
Yeah, but it's body water.
Are they...
Yeah.
Girls have nicer handwriting than boys, though, don't they?
That is one
you
thing you
find?
can often... Not
can tell
100%, but you can tell gender, yeah.
And you thought I was a girl.
Yeah, well, no, not always. I said not 100%.
We actually Tipp-X'd out the smiley face dots over the eyes.
But I like yours, Phil. I like your A. It says here about you, self-control, egotism, coldness, unstable, sometimes does things
Well,
without
no,
thinking.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. Unstable. Whoa!
We could maybe have a fight as to who is the coldest.
Let's both get a 99 and just stand there with it.
Yeah. First one to melt loses. Whoa.
I thought I was cold.
Yeah.
He is cold, isn't he? So you did a handwriting
Yeah,
test?
I'd sat a test to become a French train driver.
What?
My friend's dad was a psychologist for SNCF, and in France, they had this idea that, you know, a responsible job like a train driver, you ought to find out if the person's a maniac or not. We don't bother with that. No. And so I sat the test, and there was a handwriting element, but what they did was you had to hold the pen in your wrong hand,
right.
and they put there's a kind of rubber ring around the middle, and you had to try and trace over what was written there, and if it drifted up the page, you were assertive, possibly too aggressive, and if it went down the page, you were deemed to be too passive and
Good Lord.
What was really interesting was the tests were all actually common sense. There was one where they said, right, press that pedal if it's green, that pedal if it's red, that pedal if it's yellow, and you'll hear a hooter if you get it wrong. And you did it for about 15 seconds, and then they arbitrarily sounded the hooter. And then it was just to see whether you went to pieces or not.
I'm just fascinated how you can drive a train too passively, though. What do you do? How can you be too passive driving?
Strange.
Oh, we're going terribly fast.
You have to turn into Alan Bennett, don't you? Well, there you are. How can you tell when you're a victim of the Goldilocks effect?
That was actually quite-
Yes.
You feel just right.
That's sort of exactly what a Goldilocks anything is, isn't it? Because that's the nature of Goldilocks. You're absolutely right. It's just all about this one's too much, that one's too little, this one is just
Yeah.
right. And the Goldilocks effect is used in business. You set a price of something.
And then you set 3 bears on them.
You have a range of 3, and the most expensive one is unbelievably expensive. And the second one is really a quarter as much and seems just as nice, really. And then there's a third one that's really very cheap. And most people will go for the second one.
Why?
Because they think it's just right. They think, oh, the first one's too expensive. But
middle.
that's a bargain. A good example, supposedly, of Goldilocks pricing is the airfare, actually. The basic economy price for a transatlantic airline is about £500. And then there's business class for a mere £3,500. And then first class with a full-size bed and the ability to order food whenever you want and other things for £8,000. And according to Goldilocks pricing, business class with all its perks looks like a bargain when compared to the £8,000, even though it's still 7 times as expensive as economy.
I was talking to Steve Cram once, and he's a nice, very nice chap, very fast runner. And he said that they make trainers, they have to make some that are extremely expensive because people will buy them. If they
Yes,
don't, the
that's-
other manufacturer will charge 200 quid
Yep.
for basically, once you get to about, this was 10 years ago, and he was saying about 60 quid, so maybe it's a bit more now. Then they're really about the same after that.
Yeah.
So once you get to 100, 120, 150, you're just giving them money.
And that's called prestige pricing, which is, again, bizarre. If something's expensive enough, people will believe it must be quality. And, you know, they see me coming. They see those people coming. Well, there are other Goldilocks things. There's a Goldilocks zone. The distance from the sun a planet has to be in another solar system, which would support water where it wouldn't be too hot, wouldn't be too cold. Well, there you are. Anyway, yes, Goldilocks pricing is a technique where one item is given a huge price tag to help persuade us that the next one down is relatively good value. Now we're off to Ireland, where the policemen are called... Guards. Garda, the Garda, exactly. Now, did you hear about the Irish policeman who tried to arrest a Polish driving licence?
No.
Do you know the story? You do.
Well, I
you
sort
might.
of know. I sort of... It was... Someone was done for speeding or something.
Yeah.
Is that right? In lots of different parts of Ireland.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He had 50 offences against him. He was fast becoming the most wanted motorist in Ireland. Bravo Yazda. He's a master criminal because he had different driving licences that had different addresses on. So this Bravo Yazda had all these.
Goodness knows what he was up to, apart from the driving offences.
Exactly. That was what everyone was puzzled by. They really wanted him. But it turned out one Garda member said, I think, I may be wrong, but Prawo jazdy is the Polish for driving licence. And red faces all round at Garda headquarters. There it is, Prawo jazdy. The fact they said permis de conduire above it might have been a hint, but there we
Are
are.
they still looking for his brother, Redzets Polita Polska?
They might be. But on the subject of driving licence, guess who had the first driving licence in the world?
The Queen.
No, oddly enough, you couldn't be wronger, because the Queen has
No driving
no
licence.
driving licence. She's the only person in Britain who doesn't have a driving licence, yet who drives.
She...
Or who, I mean, there may be illegal ones, obviously. The only one who legally has no need for a driving licence.
So what does she show them at Blockbusters to prove her address and that?
A £20 note. That would do it. Yeah. Well, no, but the first ever driving licence, not surprisingly perhaps, who invented the motor car?
Mr. Benz.
Mr. Benz, Carl Benz. Carl Benz is in Mercedes-Benz. Yeah, exactly.
He just made one for himself.
Well, no, the citizens of
I need a licence. It's a dangerous machine. I need a licence to drive. Now I can drive.
License number 1.
0001.
I bet the first thing he did when he got on the road was stop the next bloke and go, "There's your license."
Oh, dear.
I will issue it as a license. It's 5 marks. 0002. Good day, too. Where's your license? I will issue it with a license. 5 marks. 0003.
I don't know, he kept making the cars.
Yeah, he's so busy. The authorising body was called the Dampfkessel-Überwachungsverein, which means the Steam Boiler Supervision Association, which granted the first licences, in the mandatory ones in Prussia.
The SSA.
Until the 14th of May, 2002, women in
He was
Lithuania...
still doing it.
1
billion.
5 euros.
Where's your license?
No, in Lithuania in that year, women had to undergo a certain test in order to get a licence. What do you think that test was?
In where? Lithuania?
It's Lithuania, yes.
Smear test.
Well, yes, a gynecological examination.
joking.
No. I don't know. There was one man who ran the entire office. He may... It's rather bizarre. The Chinese have multiple choice driving test questions, 100 of them. One of them includes is, if you come across a road accident victim whose intestines are lying on the road, should you pick them up and push them back in? Is the answer yes or no?
I should think you don't push them back in.
You don't, you're right. You would not get your licence.
I'm not a doctor.
Yes. No. You
Didn't
don't.
know that weird thing in the Cultural Revolution in China, whereby traffic lights, you know, here are green for go and red for stop.
Yeah.
But they thought during the Cultural Revolution that that was incorrect and that red should mean go, because, you know, sort of
lucky
culturally,
number.
communism and all the rest of it.
right.
But they failed to change all the traffic lights. So some traffic lights green was go and some red was go, and they just had thousands of accidents. And then they had to sort of change it back.
Wow. Hence the probability of there being intestines lying on the road.
Yeah.
So it is a
Probably
sort
where
of
it came from in the first place.
It's a
But
practical
no, they're not
question.
actually green, though, are they? They're kind of blue.
Yes, they can be, can't they?
Because red and green is a very, very common colour blindness. So when they first did red and green, it was a disaster for some people. Just carried straight on.
Yeah, and because they couldn't tell which light, whether it was the top or the bottom.
No, so the green...
If I see a black and white film, I can tell which light's on, can't you?
Yes, but not in the dark, Stephen. Sometimes you
Yeah,
you
you're right.
are
That's a fair
relying
point.
on
No,
the
that
colour,
is-
let's face it,
No,
usually.
you're right. I'm sorry. That's fair.
Can we not argue, because that is what the terrorists want.
Yeah. You're right. Thank you, voice of sanity.
But
Let's
then
hope...
I did hear a character in a film once say, "Don't look at the lights never hit anyone." So that's quite a good motto for driving.
It is.
This is what I will use. Not to look at the lights. The lights never hit anyone.
Ausgezeichnet. So, now we're motoring along nicely here, so can you tell me what travels from Land's End to John O'Groats every year at about 1/3 of a mile per hour, but it slows down a bit on hills?
Does it specifically go from there to there, or is it just a north-south?
It actually goes from the south to the north, but it includes going from Land's
Is
End.
there a sort of tectonic
No,
wave or
it's
something?
not a tectonic
Weird. I don't know
wave.
if they exist. I just made that up.
No, no, it's something sort of slightly more abstract. It's a phenomenon, rather, which you were sort of getting.
Oh, is it?
Dress sense. If we're talking about moving from the south to the north.
Oh, no, hold on.
The Gulf Stream or something? Does it sort of? Is it a windy thing?
Seasonal. It is a season.
Spring.
Spring is the answer.
Spring.
Spring takes 8 weeks to get from the very south coast all the way up to the very north and up to the Orkneys.
Well, what's the definition of spring?
Well, there is a phenotype analysis you can do of particular common plants blooming. Anyone who lives, say, in the Midlands and occasionally goes to London will say, oh, my God, they've already got their daffodils out, or we haven't yet. Or they'll go north and say, oh, they haven't got their tulips yet. And it's very noticeable.
Sort of bastard.
Yeah.
So the bloke, when the weatherman's on Radio 4 and he goes, and you might like to make note that it's the first day of spring today. You go, no, it's not! I think you'll find I'm still freezing here.
8 miles a day it does, spring. Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying it takes about 8 weeks to get from John O'Groats, and someone's calculated that as being about a third of a mile per hour.
You could walk and just beat spring.
Yeah.
You could. It's a weird thought. That's very weird, isn't
If
it?
you timed it with a daffodil, you could walk at exactly the right speed.
That
You could go...
opens... Oh, well, no.
And you would be rather beautiful. I'm in touch with my feminine side.
You know, you're responding to your handwriting beautifully. Well, it's the phenological observations, as they call them, of the various different things that trigger spring. It's a rather wonderful thought, isn't it? Spring moving up like that. Why do birds fly south in the winter?
I thought you were going to sing close to you.
Because it's too far to walk. No, but it's...
They're going because it's warmer, presumably, aren't they?
But what's the advantage of the warmth?
Well, you feel nicer. It's better on your feathers. There's nothing like the sun on your feathers.
It's the insects. The insects in the north, in the frozen earth, you can't get at them, or they've died anyway and they're in a sort of dormant state and they're not available. The food for the birds is not there. So it is food. Spring travels north through Britain at about 1/3 of a mile per hour, but arrives 2 days later for every 100 foot of elevation. As we're travelling at a snail's pace, never mind snail mail, what happened to the snail telegram or telegraph?
That's not it, is it?
No. Amazingly, a Frenchman called Benoit had a theory that when two snails, male and female, mated, right, forever afterwards, they had a telepathic power. There's some mating snails for you. And that no matter how far away they were, they could communicate thoughts to each other. So he raised money to develop this system where he had a sort of dish to which he glued, right, 24 snails, which he labelled A to Z, missing out, I think, Q and X, possibly. And then the mates of each one, he did the same to on another dish, and the other dish could go to New York. All you had to do was wibble the A, and the A in New York one would wibble because it had mated with the... And so you'd send your message by typing snails, and the person at the other end would watch the snails vibrate and read out the message. But, as I say, the amazing thing is he found someone to invest in this.
Yeah. And that, gentlemen, is how we broke the Enigma code.
Isn't it fantastic? It was called the Passylalinic sympathetic compass, using escargotic vibration.
These snails are just disgusting.
They are.
Riding all over each other. Will they stop it? Get a room.
Technically, they had got a room.
They carried their own room around with them.
Sitting on
Yes,
the
that's sort of the thing.
Is it wrong to be aroused now? Because I...
Oh. Anyway, sadly, the Passylalinic sympathetic compass, or snail telegraph, simply didn't work. Whilst on the subject of gadgetry, however, what's the point of those machines?
Now, that's an eternally filling glass in the middle, never emptying.
Yes.
Perpetual motion.
Oh, points to the man, absolutely. They're all perpetual motion machines, or at least attempts to design perpetual motion machine. Well, what is a perpetual motion machine?
One that never stops.
But,
one
yeah.
that is in motion in perpetuity, Stephen.
Yes.
The answer is the question.
No,
Big
but
boy.
there's more, slightly more to it than that.
With a view to...
There must be no input of energy.
Oh, yes.
No energy
Yeah,
in,
there
but you
must-
should be able to get energy out.
You get
through the
energy
motion,
out
yeah.
because it's moving. And, of course, it transgresses what? What law?
Law of thermodynamics.
The first and second laws of thermodynamics. And there's a Simpson episode where Lisa builds a perpetual motion machine. Homer says, in this house we obey the laws of thermodynamics. Bizarre line. But no, the point is they can never work. Leonardo actually did drawings of attempted perpetual motion machines, but he realised being...
No, he's just drawn a chocolate orange from the top.
Oh, yes.
How boring have you got to be if you draw a diagram of how you take a chocolate orange apart?
Well, no,
He invented a lot of things. I didn't know he invented that.
And he did write in his notebook, "O ye seekers after perpetual motion, how many vain chimeras have you pursued? Go and take your place with the alchemists." So he spotted quite early on that it was never going to work. Sadly, our universe is not made in such a way, because you'd only need one and you could power the world from it, in theory, couldn't you?
You only need one and you could power the world from it.
Sorry, Mr. Bond. Anyway, and that brings us now grumbling to the gizzards of general ignorance. So figures on buzzers, if you would. Take a child and give them a really sugary drink. What happens?
I haven't got any kids, I've no idea. Speaking as an uncle, I'm often discouraged from giving them too much chocolate because they go, in quotes, mental.
Right.
So is that it?
No. It's odd. Almost every mother watching this will disbelieve me when I say that medical evidence shows that sugary drinks do not cause hyperactivity. They do not... I know, it's shocking. You're all going, you should see mine, it does. I swear to you it does! Well, it doesn't.
So maybe just any sort of fuel. So if you gave a quick drink of water or an apple or something...
You do test the so-called children that do this, in which you give them drinks that actually have no sugar in at all. The parents think they have the sugar. The parents think that they've got sugar. It's the parents who perceive it. And it's very interesting. The parents who perceive it are the ones who most hover over their children and are most critical of their children's behaviour anyway. They're the ones who apparently notice it.
Was this research funded by Coca-Cola?
We trialled this question on the QI website, and none of the mothers believed us. They all said, I don't care what the scientists say, my child goes nuts.
I don't believe it either, but then I'm very in touch with my feminine side.
They dip quite quickly, kids, anyway. If you just keep giving them something to snack on, they'll go up again. At least this is how it works with my nephews. They run around a bit and they go, then God, they go home. And then you give them a sandwich and they go up. It's quite hard work keeping a level, even keel through the day.
I think that's generally true. We know you won't believe us, but sugary drinks don't make children hyperactive. That's general ignorance. That's why we call it general ignorance. However, what happens if you leave teeth in a glass of cola overnight?
Well, they totally, completely dissolve and disappear.
No, it turns out they don't. There was a famous occasion in 1950 when a doctor appeared before the House of Representatives Special Committee. He was called Clive Mackay of Cornell University. And to dramatise his testimony, he said that a tooth left in a glass of Coke would begin to dissolve after 2 days. Even if his claims were accurate, it is of absolutely no relevance whatsoever because it washes down your teeth quickly. You don't, soak your teeth in it.
Does it clean your money, though? Is it the one that cleans your money?
I believe it does. A lot of those do.
sauce.
HP sauce is really good for cleaning money.
Great.
It's actually vinegar. That's what does it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
All that money I've been wasting on HP sauce.
My mum used to say to me, because I used to drink a lot of Coke when I was in my early teens, and she'd say, you shouldn't drink Coke because it stains the inside of your stomach.
That's going to put the girls off, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you know that's not true?
No, you don't, but you kind of think, well, if I ever see the inside of my stomach, it's probably going to be a bit late to worry about what colour it is.
I can't wait, Andy. I mean, I don't like to talk about a friend's death, but at your post-mortem, look at this terrible stain.
He's got cola-coloured tripe. My goodness. Well, they do cause tooth decay, but not as much as we discovered in a previous QI as...
Jam?
No. Crisps, potato crisps.
Salted
Crisps. Far more tooth decay caused by them.
No.
Yes.
Because they stay on your teeth?
Because they stay there and they just hang around, We'll do one you might actually believe. Name an ape that walks just on 2 feet and isn't human. Because we obviously walk on 2 feet rather than on our hands.
Only on 2 feet?
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't... No.
If I start saying ape, then it's going to go on.
They use the back of their hands like this.
But is it a monkey with a tail? I seem to remember seeing... There's a very keen little monkey that's got a tail.
With a tail?
Wait, it's got a tail that sort of counterbalances
I need more
him.
from you there, Phil. Baboon, gibbon, chimp.
Oh, you've said it.
Baboon, gibbon or chimp.
Yes.
Gibbon.
Gibbon is the right answer. The
Funky gibbon in particular.
The funky gibbon especially. Yeah. Here is some gibbon.
Look at it go, look at it go! It looks so shifty, like it's all just next on it all.
It looked like in his head he had the Mission Impossible music, didn't he? I can do this.
No, there as well. That's rather good, isn't it?
That's Russell Brand.
they do that just to taunt the other apes?
Yeah, I think they probably do.
Can you do this?
It's
I
considered
can.
by evolutionists to be a more primitive way of walking, the way we do and gibbons do. Seems to have been earlier than the fall. I know, that's weird. Anyway, let's finish with an easy one for you. I want you to sort these following creatures and phenomena into age order. Which is the oldest? Oldest to youngest.
I'd put A first.
A first, the Himalayas.
No, they're quite young. That's why they're tall.
They are.
Tall mountains are young because they haven't been
They are
worn
the
down
youngest.
by all
They are the
They are the
youngest
youngest
thing
range, yeah.
on the board there. They're the youngest of them all. They're
Are
only 20 million
I
years
think
old.
DCBA.
DCBA is not bad. Not bad.
DCAB.
It's actually CDBA.
Right.
The oldest is the spider, then the cockroach, then the triceratops, and then the Himalayas or Himalayas. In fact, it's quite interesting, which is, after all, our business. Yeah, ants are contemporaneous with dinosaurs, but cockroaches predate them by at least 55 million years. And spiders were even older, 300 million years ago.
If the spider's first, what did it catch?
Damn, that's good. Flies, but not cockroaches. Yeah.
The fly was first.
The fly. Which came first, the spider or the fly? Is a really good question.
A lot
Sometimes
of webs and a
out
lot
of
spiders,
innocent
but come on.
ignorance, little childish wisdom spills out. No, the dinosaurs lived, I'm only teasing, you know, the late Triassic, 230 million years ago, to the Cretaceous, 65 million years ago. And Mount Everest was only 25 million years. So it's 25 million years younger than the youngest dinosaur.
Whippersnapper.
That looks like the pictures from the worst spelling book ever. There's a cockroach in the corner. And I saw a binosaur. Out, I'll get out.
That's very good. Well done, everybody. The Himalayas, or Himalayas, or Himalayas, or the Himalayas, as human beings say. The Himalayas have only been around for 40 million years. The last dinosaurs died out 25 million years before they were formed. And spiders and cockroaches are even older than dinosaurs. That's it for another week, so let's have a look at the scores, shall we? Oh, my goodness gracious me. We have a clear winner with plus 4 points, would you believe? Hugh Dennis!
Yes.
Also in the black with plus 2, it's Andy Hamilton. 17 behind with minus 15, Phil Jupiters. And way down with the cockroaches at minus 56, Alan Davis. It's farewell from Hugh, Andy, Phil, Alan and myself. I'll leave you the story of a couple who went to the Natural History Museum and they saw the big dinosaur skeleton there and they asked the attendant how old it was and he said it's 65 million, 14 years and 3 months old. And they said, well, that's amazing. Is that like carbon dating? How can you tell so precisely how old it is? He said, no. He said, when I first came here, they told me it was 65 million years old. And I've been here 14 years and 3 months. Thank you. Good night.
Nathan's flashbacks are getting worse in Heroes next on BBC Two, and it's a Christmas festival for rationalists on BBC Four. In Nerdstock, Richard Dawkins, Mark Steele and Shapi Kasandi.